Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Within Warzone right now, obviously there's a lot of top tier options that you can run between rifles, SMGs, LMGs, so on and so forth, but there are a handful of weapons currently that stand out in one way or another that honestly can be considered borderline broken, borderline overpowered in a lot of scenarios. And today I wanted to narrow it down to 5 specific weapons and weapon builds that can be ridiculously powerful if you know what you're doing with the weapon. So for instance, the first weapon I want to look at is actually the Sidewinder. Now, we've sort of memed the Sidewinder for the vast majority of the year for being one of the less ideal weapons in the game with its fire rate, and for a while its damage was just so mediocre. In recent seasons, it's actually become a lot better. We've talked about it a couple of different times here on the channel, but in specific, the semi-auto build for the Sidewinder is just flat out insane, honestly. Now, it is a higher skill gap gun, but if you know what you're doing with this and you can consistently spam the semi-auto on this thing while maintaining decent accuracy on an enemy, its TTK is absolutely broken. It's one of the best in the game, and that means that there's like very few guns out there that are going to be able to have the chance even to win a one-on-one gunfight with the semi-auto Sidewinder, which is a crazy statement, but it's actually accurate. So the setup here for a semi-auto gun is going to be relatively similar to the full auto version. Always go for whatever optic you're comfortable with. For me, that's the 2.5 times the Eagle Eye. Love the look of this thing, and it honestly works great for semi-auto as well because it's going to be consistently on target. It's not going to jump too much because it's too zoomed in or anything. I do go for the 30 round extended mag. That's the max here. The semi-auto fire rate doesn't go just insane, right? So you'll have plenty of ammo, but obviously it's kind of up to you how quickly you're gonna burn through these 30 rounds. I do also go for Bruin heavy support. This is especially important on a semi-auto gun. Yes, it is hurting that vertical control some, but when you're spamming this, there will be some bounce to it just the faster you spam it naturally. But really what matters here is the aiming auto sway and firing aim stability pros. Those are gonna make it so that your recentering speed and your accuracy is much better as you are spamming this thing, so you're going to hit more shots because of this. We do want to up our velo and our range as best we can here. 885 is all right for some velocity. It's not the greatest, but it'll suffice. You'll have a decent hit scan range with that. Then also I do go for a Tempest GH50 muzzle just because this does a lot for your vertical, a little bit for your horizontal. So again, as you're spamming, it's going to make it easier. That said, if you're just crazy comfortable with the semi-auto Sidewinder, maybe you're pushing for more like mid-range engagements on Resurgence or something, you could try dropping this, throwing on something like high grain, and you end up getting a much better velocity as well, up over 1,000. So that hit scan range would be even better and make this weapon even more lethal. So certainly something to consider depending on your skill level. But yeah, the semi-auto Sidewinder is actually crazy good in the right hands. Next up, we got the WSP, or the Wasp Stinger pistol. We've talked about this one again a couple of times as well, and I'm honestly kind of surprised this hasn't been adjusted because its close range TTK, while there is a little bit of RNG factored into it, is absolutely crazy as well. This thing in buildings, when you're pushing those, or you're like end game face to face with enemies, you have this thing, you can spray and pray with it. I mean, it's going to be tough to outgun this thing, whether you're using a meta SMG or a top tier shotgun or whatever the case is, right? Like, this thing is actually pretty wild as well, and that's because of the akimbo aspect here. The base Wasp Stinger by itself, kind of mid. You make it akimbo, the TTK is nuts. So that's by far the most important part of this. Outside of that, we really just care about accuracy. So I do go for the sidearm laser here. It's going to give you the best hip fire accuracy there. Unfortunately, no stocks or barrels are going to help out with that. So the breacher device S muzzle is the only other thing that's going to help out there with that hip fire spread for some reason. In addition to that, I do also go for high grain rounds. The recoil cons here don't really matter, but you're going to get some better range out of this, so that better TTK will extend even further. Also helps out a little bit with that hit scan range. And then again, extended mag here, 32 rounds per pistol here, means obviously you're gonna have plenty to spray and pray with. So this thing, obviously being akimbo, means there's gonna be some RNG with where your bullets are going, but if you're barrel stuffing, if you're constantly pushing enemies and exclusively playing the ultra close range, this thing's TTK is crazy as well. And by the way, as we are breaking down all the weapons and setups here today, if you are new to the channel, or maybe you have not subscribed yet, let's change that. Every single day I got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns like this. So if you want to guarantee you're always up to date, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and if you enjoy this video, a like rating is always really appreciated. We don't really ever go for like goals anymore, but if we could go for 1,000 on this one, that'd be absolutely awesome to see. Much love as always to everyone who supports the videos on a day-to-day basis. Next up, we got the WSP-9 SMG, or the WASP-9 SMG, and you might think, okay, well, we know about the WASP-9. It's been a decent SMG for some time. What about this is so crazy? Well, it's actually what happens when you compare this to other SMGs SMGs, other meta options like, let's say, the Supri or the Horus or other great choices like that, and you factor in things outside of just the pure TTK. Now, this thing has a great range and a great TTK for an SMG. It's super competitive, but when you go through and you actually factor in Sprintifire and whatnot, this thing's TTK becomes even better and actually separates itself out from some of those other top tier options. So while you might think, okay, we have a clear number one SMG and it's the Supri, or you could argue for the Horus, and those have kind of been dominating for some time, the Wasp 9 is actually significantly better and more competitive than you might realize, while also being a ridiculously easy SMG to use as well. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the iron sight, so I do go for an elo sight. In this case, you could use a Nidar or a Slate, whatever optic you're comfortable with. Yet again, we got the 50 round extended mag on here. This works great with this fire rate. You'll have plenty of ammo for all squad sizes. High grain rounds, better range, better velocity on here. It's so easy to use that the control cons don't really matter. And you get a great range for an SMG and a great hit scan range as well. DR6 hand stop for better movement, strafe, ADS, speed, sprint to fire, and then Zem 35 compensator. Again, just makes the weapon easier to use. Minimal cons to your ADS and your velo there. So this thing turns out to be, you know, just a hyper aggressive SMG that has a super competitive TTK. I don't think many people realize is as good as it actually is. Next up, we've got the SVA. And while the TTK of this thing in the general handling and whatnot is pretty average, like it's nothing absolutely crazy, what is 100% broken about this gun is the hyper burst or semi-auto build that quite literally has zero recoil. You can spam this thing as fast as you possibly can, and it's going to be a direct laser beam the entire time, which means you can really max it out in certain areas without having to worry about any cons. And in turn, this thing fries because you're hitting so many more shots with this as opposed to maybe a full auto AR or LMG or other mid to long range option, right? So a couple of standard things here: 2.5 times eagle eye yet again in the 60 round extended mag. Now I do go for high grain here. The recoil cons don't matter when you flip this into hyper burst or semi-auto, but you're getting better velo and better damage range, which obviously are super important. The precision barrel also helps out with better range, velocity, and control on here. The control doesn't really matter, but range and velo do, of course. And then sonic suppressor you can get away with because this is going to give you even better velo and decent range, just like something like Spirit Fire would, but the control cons, again, don't really matter all that much. So you end up with an 1100 velo, meaning the hit scan range on this thing is going to be pretty much active in every single realistic fight you're taking. You have a fantastic damage range where its TTK is the fastest in its first and second damage ranges. And then the no recoil of the hyper burst or semi-auto feature means that this thing is truly a super unique rifle that has upsides for anyone who can handle a semi-auto or burst style weapon, you know, decently in a gunfight. It's going to be a lower risk, higher reward semi-auto option, which is not something you usually ever see. Hey folks, wanted to take a quick second and talk about Gamer Advantage. If you've been around the channel for some time now, you know about GA. You guys know in every single video, I am rocking these. And even when I'm not recording, I'm just sitting here gaming, I'm watching TV, whatever the case is, I got these things on because truly they are game changers. If you're trying to sleep better at night, reduce eye strain or your headaches, you gotta get yourself a pair. They offer prescription or regular lenses, so something for everyone. They've got you covered there. A bunch of different colorways and frame options so they can rock with your style there too. If you're interested at all in picking up anything from the Gamer Advantage site, be sure to toss in code Immortal at checkout, and that'll get you a nice little discount. The link for that's going to be down below in the description if you're interested. And then lastly here, I've got the Holger 26 Jack Burnout aftermarket part. Now, quite frankly, this thing is a close range menace. There are some asterisks again though that you have to pay attention to really optimize how broken or how overpowered this weapon can be, and that is treating it not necessarily always like an SMG, despite the fact that it's supposed to be played like one. So when I say that, I mean this thing's Sprintifire and ADS are not good, especially with the build you have to run to make it usable. So what you have to do when you're playing with this thing is pretty much spam ADS. If you think you're going to get into a fight, just make sure your sights are up and you're ready, because shot for shot, this thing's TTK is crazy as well. It can absolutely fry and compete with the best close range options in a way that other options and other guns just can't. And it's really cool that it's kind of an LMG at its core that's doing this in the close range. But the key thing is not relying on its ADS and Sprintifire in a gunfight against SMGs, because then those will outgun you. So if you got your sights up with this thing, it's crazy. So Jack Burnout Kit on here obviously changes the damage profile. The fire rate goes absolutely nuts. I do have the Ascent Lord stock to make the recoil easier on this thing. Up in that fire rate does mean there's a lot of kicks. So anything you can help out with control here with minimal mobility cons is definitely important. And this actually doesn't hurt the ADS, which is nice. I got the Nidar model 2023 on here. Super solid optic for the close range. Our default magazine is 60, works just fine. So I do go for high grain, gives you a better damage range. That first damage range obviously is where the fastest TTK is, but then also it does help out in that second range as well, just being more effective across the board. And then of course, skeletal vertical grip on here helps out some with the control, but then also speeds up your ADS and your sprint to fire a tad bit. It's not anything super significant, but any help there is worthwhile. But really focus on walking around with your sights up with this thing and you'll be a-okay, because it actually will melt in those close range scenarios. And those are 5 weapons that in the right hands truly can be some of the most powerful and broken setups in the game. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out so you can always guarantee you're up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.